Okay, for our final presentation tonight, we're honored to have Neil Cronin from the Canadian Embassy, who will introduce our last awardee. Neil.
Good evening. I will hide behind the podium. My name is Niall Cronin, and I'm the Counselor for Public Affairs at the Embassy of Canada here in Washington, D.C. I want to very much thank the Arthur C. Clarke Foundation for giving me the privilege of introducing the next award winner. I think the award for Imagination in Service to Society could not go to a more fitting recipient, and a Canadian to boot. Novelist, story writer, poet, essayist, and inventor, Margaret Atwood is a contemporary icon. Her body of work has gained international critical acclaim and won numerous literary awards. Her 1985 novel, The Handmaid's Tale, was the first recipient of the UK's Arthur C. Clarke Award for Science Fiction Writing, the UK's most prestigious science fiction prize. Margaret Atwood has been described as one of the most inventive minds writing today. Her latest novel, The Heart Goes Last, has critics calling her totally fearless. And while some of her novels take us down a very dystopian path, Margaret Atwood's commitment to social justice and the environment speak to her dedication and hope for the future. And I think that's something we've all heard all of the award winners share tonight. Margaret Atwood's commitment to planet Earth is well known. As was Sir Arthur, she too is very much concerned with the long-term sustainability of our planet. And Margaret Atwood lives this concern. You'll see from the program, that her office and home are powered by Bullfrog Power, the first 100% green electricity retailer in Ontario, Canada. And when she travels by air, she buys carbon neutral credits. I think this is especially impressive given where we are tonight. Margaret Atwood is also known for her wit and social commentary. And if you like, she can explain the Canadian political scene to you using Lord of the Rings very, very well. I think it's very healthy for democracy that artists like Margaret Atwood can hold officials to account and challenge all of us. And while it is unlikely we will always agree, the fact that we are open and remain open to having the conversation speaks to the strength of our systems of government. Not all parts of today's world, and certainly not the worlds of Margaret Atwood's imagination, can say the same. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to present the award for Imagination in Service to Society to Margaret Atwood.
I'm going to hide behind the podium. I'm a podium hider. So I'm the frothy pink part of this evening's procedures, because although I grew up with the scientists, I disappointed my family by not becoming one. My brother became a neurophysiologist, and my nephew became a physicist, and my other nephew became a materials engineer, but I became a writer. And that was sort of a dodgy thing to do in my family. But I feel that I'm quite at home tonight amongst all of you, because I did spend the first 10 years of my life in outer space. We had a flourishing imaginary world. It took place on other planets. It was initiated by my brother, who wrote copiously about his other planet. And both of our other planets were populated, unlike yours. Our other planets were populated by flying rabbits. So slight differences, but they were other planets. We had spaceships. This was in the 40s, of course, when we were very immersed in World War II. My brother was more immersed than I was. He had lots of wars on his planets and many explosions amongst these spaceships and flying vehicles, and he traded his colored pencils, his pink, his silver, and his gold for my red, yellow, and orange to make the explosions. I needed the pink, silver, and gold to make the princess outfits that were that were worn on my other planet, even amongst the flying rabbits. So thank you for inviting me here to this wonderful celebratory event in honor of Sir Arthur C. Clarke and of his many, many contributions to human thought and to the life of the imagination. And I am so pleased to have met my fellow recipients, both of whom are working hard to make the world a more habitable place. That is very encouraging. It was a thrill for me when The Handmaid's Tale was the recipient of the first Arthur C. Clarke Award for science fiction writing way back in 1985, at a time when dystopian, earthbound, speculative fiction in the genetic line of Jules Verne, Jack London, Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, and the Ray Bradbury of Fahrenheit 451, books I was reading in the 1950s when I was in high school, that kind of fiction was not much in vogue in the mid-1980s. In fact, some critics did not know what to make of The Handmaid's Tale, and some other folks were upset by it, though not as upset as they later became when they made many efforts to ban it from high schools. So it was very nice that the Arthur C. Clarke people gave The Handmaid's Tale a kindly pat and a leg up right at the beginning of its life. Since that time, more specifically since about 2005, we've seen an outburst of dystopian and apocalyptic fiction of many varieties. The zombie apocalypse is only one of them. Hint, there will not be a zombie apocalypse anytime soon. The Hunger Games is another variety. Hint, inspired though this is by such real-life arrangements as Cretan bull jumping and Roman gladiatorial combat, and indeed paintball, there is unlikely to be a Hunger Games anytime soon. Water Knife is a third kind of this fiction, and it is closer to a possible future reality since it is based on the kind of climate change and drought that we are already seeing. Indeed, climate fiction is now becoming a recognized subgenre with anthologies and blogs and book titles and so forth, and films springing up around it. People often ask me about the reasons for this upsurge of disquieting fictions about the future, but those reasons are not far to seek. In the 19th century, utopian fictions and actual utopian economic and social schemes were so thick on the ground that Gilbert and Sullivan wrote a comic operetta about them called Utopia Limited. People in the Victorian century really believed that the future would keep getting better and better because so many improvements were already being made. Sewage systems, electric lights, the telegram, the discovery of germs and of antiseptics, steam engines, anesthesia, the list was long. But then along came World War I and a crop of dictatorships that began as utopian schemes but ended in horrific bloodshed, and we lost faith in inevitable progress and took to writing dystopias instead. Present-day dystopias are a reflection of present-day fears. Young people worry about having jobs and even about having a living space they can afford, and they also worry about climate change, the death of the biosphere, the breakdown of social order, and universal surveillance via digital media. And they worry about intelligent robots, of course, a perennial favorite, though now we're close to really having some. Will we rule them, or will they rule us? It's no wonder the young are writing and reading dystopias. But perhaps it's almost time for us to tackle utopias again. Surely we can allow ourselves to imagine, if not some fairy tale land where everything is perfect, at least a world where things are more decent. I think Sir Arthur Clarke would agree. And in view of the depletion of the biosphere we depend on for our life, we certainly need to do some smart thinking and inventing. Indeed, a lot of people are already doing that. Many of those who do not have their heads stuck firmly into the sands of denial, or who, on the other hand, are cheering on the apocalypse because they look forward to being raptured up in a cloud so they can watch everyone else fry. Many of those who are aware of our actual situation are giving a lot of serious thought to the potential remedies. Can we tech ourselves out of the hole we have, to some extent, teched ourselves into? We live in an age of increasing synergies when the arts and the sciences, which have been diverging for too long a time, are coming back together. Writers of, let's call it, reality-based imaginative fiction have always been a few jumps ahead of the game. I look forward to seeing what they'll come up with in the way of potential scenarios for the human race. Scenarios of a positive kind, that is. We already know what hell looks like, and unfortunately, we're quite good at creating it. Maybe it's time once more to give a minor version of paradise a chance. And maybe that minor version of paradise is the earth and the oceans we already have, and what we need to do is to use every imaginative and inventive effort to preserve them, since without them we perish. Can a heaven be seen in a wild flower, as William Blake said? If so, let 1,000,000 wildflowers bloom. Good luck with it, Earth folk, and Earth folk writers too. Give it your best shot.